The Subcommittee on Employee Relations is called to order. My name is Erin Murphy. I serve in the Minnesota Senate. This committee is newly appointed. And so I'd like to begin with the introductions, which is the proper way for us to begin when we are beginning our work together. And if I could start on my right with Senator Zainab Mohammed, if you'd like to introduce yourself. We'll do the room first and then we'll go to the Zoom.
Okay, I'm Zainab Mohammed. I represent South Minneapolis in District 63.
State Senator Mark Graham, representing Chisago and Isanti counties, Senate District 28.
Good afternoon, Nick Nigro, Research Analyst with the LCC.
And new to this work.
Yes.
Welcome. And I'm Erin Murphy. I serve in the Minnesota Senate and represent District 64 in St. Paul.
Leon Lilly, Representative, North St. Paul, whoops, ooh, all fancy. Leon Lilly, and I'm a state representative and represent East Metro communities, pretty close to here, North St. Paul, Maplewood, and Oakdale.
I'm Luke Frederick. I represent the communities of Mankato, Eagle Lake, and Skyline, District 18B.
I'm Patty Anderson, District 33A, and I represent Northern Washington County, just north of Leon's district, a little bit.
I'm Sally Olson, Commission Administrator with the Legislative Coordinating Commission.
And I'm Michelle Urich, the Director of the Legislative Coordinating Commission.
And then we'll go to the Zoom. Representative Joachim.
Hi, I'm Representative Cheryl Joachim, and I represent 46B, which is all of Hopkins, a little bit of St. Louis Park, and part of Edina.
Thank you. Representative O'Neill.
I'm actually Representative Rarick now.
Rarick. Oh, yes, I know you. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much. So I'm now Representative Marion Rarick, representing 29B, which is Buffalo, Monticello, Maple Lake out here in Wright County.
Senator Farnsworth.
Hi, I'm Rob Farnsworth, State Senator for Senate District 7, which is mostly up on the Iron Range and part of Itasca County and Aiken County.
And I see Stephanie James in the Zoom. If you'd like to say hello, Ms. James.
Hello. Yes, Stephanie James, Senate Counsel.
Thank you. And then in honor of former Representative Mary Murphy, I'd like to ask the people in the audience to also introduce themselves so we know who's here with us. And I can begin over here in the corner of MMB.
Hi, good afternoon. Blake Chafee, Deputy Commissioner of Enterprise Employee Resources at Minnesota Management Budget.
Afternoon, Dory Leland. I'm the Director for Employee Classification and Compensation at MMB.
Hi, I'm Paul Christensen, Compensation Consultant with MMB.
Hi, I'm Matthew Henderson, Compensation Manager at MMB.
Jennifer Klausman, I am the Labor Relations Director at MMB.
I'm part of the MMB Corner. So here. My name is Galen Benchuk. I'm the Enterprise Director for Employee Insurance at MMB.
Good afternoon. Winnie Sullivan, Office of Higher Education, Deputy Commissioner.
Good afternoon. Lanisha Bryant, HR Director, Office of Higher Education, MMB team.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Stado. I'm Senior Assistant Director for Labor Relations at Minnesota State Colleges and Universities.
Good afternoon. I'm Eric Davis, Vice Chancellor for Human Resources at Minnesota State Colleges and Universities.
Good afternoon. Bernie Owen of Minnesota State Colleges and Universities.
Hey everyone, Haley Peterson. I am a researcher with the DFL Senate Caucus.
Joe Caffrey, PSTP.
Nice work. I'm so glad you said that, Joe. All right. You should have in your packets an agenda and some documents that, thanks to the LCC staff, were sent to you ahead of time. I'm sure that you have all prepared as we are preparing for session and we're getting ready to take up this work. So in the packet are the minutes from January 18th, 2022. And I am wondering if Senator Lilly would move approval of, Representative Lilly would move approval of the minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to move the minutes for the January 18th, 22 meeting.
Members of the subcommittee, do you have any questions about the minutes or corrections?
Madam Chair, should those of us that are new recuse ourselves since we weren't here? Or is there enough votes to pass this without that?
I am certain that there are enough votes, and I don't know that you need to recuse yourself at all.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's your call. Are there questions or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes from January 18th, 2022, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? And that motion is adopted. Nice work. Here we go. Up next is the election of a chair and a vice chair. I'd like to begin by nominating Representative Lilly, who has been the chair of this committee in the past, to serve as the vice chair of this committee going forward.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I'm happy to entertain other nominations. Are there any other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, then I would move the election of Representative Leon Lilly to serve as the vice chair of the SER. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those
Aye.
opposed, please say no. Are there any abstentions? And the motion is adopted. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then next would be the election of a chair of the SER. Are there nominations?
So I'd like to nominate Senator Aaron Murphy as chair of the Subcommittee of Employee Relations. So,
I'll second the nomination.
Thank you. Are there other nominations? Any other nominations? And then seeing no nominations, Representative Lilly would like to renew his motion.
yes.
And nominating Senator Aaron Murphy, and the third person to be the chair of the committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those
Aye.
opposed, say no. And that motion is adopted. Thank you. All right. Moving next onto the agenda would be the overview of statute changes. And I'm going to turn to Mr. Nigro, who's going to go through that document with you. It is titled Rules of the Subcommittee. It is in your packet. Oh, thank you. I went right to the wrong document, just like that.
Good afternoon, members. Nick Nigro with the LCC. There are four big points that I've outlined as statutory changes since the last session, the largest being that the interim approval process for collective bargaining agreements and arbitration awards no longer comes before this subcommittee, and the ratification process does not go through the legislature. We are still in charge of compensation plans, and that'll be later business of the subcommittee. The MMB will still provide that information of collective bargaining agreements, and you should have seen and will see emails from myself or the LCC regarding those. And lastly, the decision on agency salaries no longer goes through the governor and the subcommittee. That'll now go through the Compensation Council and is effective unless rejected or modified by the legislature. And I'm happy to take any questions now or in the future.
I appreciate the overview of the changes that were put into statute in the last session. Thank you for that overview. Members, do you have comments or questions? Senator Curran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify on point number 4, I thought when this law was passed that from the agency head, doesn't that also include municipal salaries as well?
Senator Curran, I do believe we took action on municipal salaries, and I'm looking to our staff just to clarify. Did you want to join us?
I can
From
respond to
MMB?
that if you would like.
It would be great if you'd come up, identify yourself for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Dory Leland, Director for Employee Classification and Compensation at MMB. Chair Murphy, Senator Curran, the provision related to municipal salaries was rescinded, and so there's no longer a cap for municipal salaries.
Madam Chair.
Senator
Thank you.
Coran.
And I just wanted the clarification because I think based on the definition and the reading of it, the average citizen would have no idea that the legislature removed the cap and provide no oversight or transparency for the acceleration of salaries at the municipal government level. So that's all I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coran. Are there other questions or comments on the document before us? All right. Representative Rarick?
Thank you, Senator Murphy. I just, this is, there was so much that happened during the last session that we are still, those of us that actually serve in the legislature, still finding out what all was in all of the bills. There was just so much. And I just wanted to, as a longtime member of this subcommittee, express my concern and my sadness that we have been stripped of our power. Not that we had a whole lot to begin with, I'm going to say, but we are not even going to be doing interim approval. Now, I realize that it is the only committee in the entire legislature that does things differently than every other committee. Even when we had some power, if we didn't meet, then the approval was already automatic, which is odd. Usually you need a vote to approve. That was weird, and now we aren't doing it at all, so we have no look at the salary negotiations as they're kind of coming through. I just wanted to say that because I don't think the public understands that we served a very important role, even though we didn't meet for quite a bit of time, unfortunately, to actually look at all of the contracts coming through. And now we will barely be doing that. So it's really, really sad that there's not a backstop to all of that. I mean, it's approaching $12 billion of salaries for the state of Minnesota that we look at. And it's really sad that we're not going to be having the conversations that we used to have. The interim approval portion is taken away. The ratification of the legislature has been taken away. So it's just sort of on autopilot. And it's really, really sad to me to just see that this is just going to go through the legislature on essentially autopilot when you're talking about $11 to $12 billion and rising. I can't believe the increases. I've been here 11 years, I've never seen increases this massive. On my way here, I literally had a conversation with a very disgruntled restaurant owner who was irate with all of the changes that happened. And he said, I'm 62, I've had enough. I can't make a profit anymore in the restaurant business. And I'm going to sell and move to Florida. Between safe and sick time and paid family leave and all of the additional restrictions, he just can't, property tax increases and everything going up, he just can't handle it. So I would really caution us that we take this job as seriously as we can, even though most of our power has been stripped away. And I'm just really, really saddened that our power has been literally just stripped away. So I don't know why we're even meeting anymore, to be honest, even though we didn't meet for several years, sadly, during COVID. So I had to get that off my chest because I'm super frustrated with this.
Thank you, Representative O'Neill. Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been lucky enough to be on this committee for quite a few years, and I'm actually pretty comfortable with the changes that we're making, because as a member of the legislature, I think there is really a lot of opportunities as members through our committee process to really engage on budget discussions and all the finance committees. You can, whether it's a DNR employee or situation or hiring for highway patrol, or today we're talking about our college and university workers and just how important they are. But through our committee process, we can really do deeper dives than we can through this committee, at least I've found historically, and we can figure out how we can work with the things that we're seeing in the job market today, whether that's retention and other things, and budget accordingly and work with through the process. And a lot of these contracts, as we're going to talk about today, are negotiated with the MMB. But I think through the legislative process, we can really be involved, and we have great opportunities as members to speak and get involved with budget decisions as they move through. And anyways, for me, I really value the work of our employees, and I think I can show that as a member of the legislature, I think, better than maybe through this committee. So anyways, that's just a comment.
Thanks, Representative Lilly, and I will add, and I appreciate the points being raised, particularly by Representative Rarick. We did have a very thorough debate in the committee and through the process around the decision-making around the public employee contracts, and including the ways in which that decision-making became a leverage point in the last decade or so, leaving public workers sort of hanging in the balance regarding their pay increases. There is a process in which the legislature is engaged. It is when we set the budget. That budget then is taken into account as there's a negotiation between MMB, the administration, and the employees who are representing their bargaining units in that negotiation. When there's a result of a contract negotiation, that process is then ratified by the employees, and that is the end of the process. That's the standard process for collective bargaining agreements and negotiations. I will say that there is nothing preventing, and please don't frown on me, LCC staff, there is nothing preventing this committee from coming together in the interim to review, to question, to look at and understand what's happening with contracts, to understand if we think there is a trend or something that we need to look at. There's nothing that would prohibit the work of this committee in the interim, and if there's interest on the part of members, we should surely take that up. So I just wanted to make sure that as the chair for now, that I am being clear that we can meet again. And it has been a stretch of time since there has been a meeting, so I am glad we're here together. And with that, before we move to the next item, I'd like Senator Mitchell to introduce herself. Welcome.
And apologies for being behind this morning, or this afternoon. Senator Mitchell, representing District 47, which is all of Woodbury and part of Maplewood. Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is then the adoption of the rules. And I'm going to turn again to Mr. Nigro to go through the changes in the rules before we take that document up, before we vote on this.
Madam Chair, members, the changes in rules that were drafted by the LCC are largely just to conform with the changes in statute. Additionally, we added sections 4.84, 85, and 86, which are areas of oversight the subcommittee has that hadn't ever been added to these rules, and we thought it was about time to update them. Happy to take any questions.
Members, other questions? Representative O'Neill. Excuse me, Representative Rarick. I'll get it. I've just known her for a long time by another name, so I got to practice a little bit.
Senator, I appreciate that. It seems strange to me to hear it as Rarick as well, so I'm with you. I just wanted to ask for a roll call as we move forward with this. I understand that the vast majority of this is complying to statute changes, which I already expressed my grave concern over, and I feel like this is, again, kind of solidifying our taking away of our authority and our power, which is really sad. So I would just ask for a roll call, and even though I know the rules have to comply with state law, don't get me wrong, I'm going to be voting no on this only because I don't agree with the state statute changes either. So I voted no on the big massive bill, but there was so much in there that I just wanted a standalone vote on this. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Rarick. A roll call has been requested. The clerk will take the roll. Is there, before we do that, does anybody have a question before we take this vote? Just want to make sure. And I'm going to make a motion to adopt the rules. And the clerk will take the roll.
Chair Murphy.
Aye.
Senator Farnsworth.
No.
Senator Cran.
No.
Senator Mitchell.
Aye.
Senator Mohammed.
Aye.
Representative Anderson.
No.
Representative Frederick.
Aye.
Representative Lilly.
Aye.
Representative Rarick.
No.
Representative Joachim.
Aye.
6 aye, 4 no.
There being 6 ayes and 4 noes, the motion is adopted. All right. Next, the presentation of plans for consideration. Oh, thank you. Jude. And I'd like to invite Dory Leland from MMB up again to the witness table to introduce yourself and then to present the well, we'll just go through them in order. Welcome back to the committee. Would you introduce yourself again for the record?
Afternoon, Dory Leland, Director for Employee Classification and Compensation at MMB.
And I understand that we will work together on the commissioner's plan, the managerial plan, the Office of Higher Education. No, not you?
I have some representatives here from the Office of Higher Education if there's questions specific to that plan.
All right, and you will cover MNsure?
Do we have a representative from MNsure here? To the extent I can, I will certainly answer questions, and if not, I'll get you an answer as soon as
All
I can.
right. Shall we begin with the commissioner's plan then?
Sure. I believe that the materials that were received summarize all the changes in the plans, but I'm happy to take any questions. For the most part, they mirror the across-the-board increases from the represented employee contracts that have been settled so far. And there's some other provisions that are similar to what was reached with in our settled contracts.
All right. Members, you have the document before you. It is titled Commissioner's Plan. Are there questions?
Madam Chair.
Senator Coran.
So on the expansion, we already know and understand the salaries, which appear to be very attractive. In this particular group, how many people are eligible for a step increase in the compensation plan before us?
Ms. Leland, when you're ready, no pressure.
Chair Murphy, Senator Coran, in the Commissioner's Plan, about 55, well, for the across-the-board increases, it's the folks who meet the standards for acceptable performance. And then so 55% of people are not yet up at the top of the range, and so they'd be eligible for a performance increase. And then for the step increases, there are 55% of the members that are not yet at the top and eligible for that increase.
Madam Chair.
At some point during the anniversary, during the year.
Thank you,
Senator
Ms.
Coran.
England. So with that then, so 55% of the population is going to be, of our work, of the people covered under this contract, will get the 3.5% step increase on average in addition to the 5%. So they'll get a 9% increase and a 8% increase in the following year, totaling 17%. And so I have a concern with these numbers. I think Representative Burke said the same, is that these numbers are significant, and before anybody goes, yeah, I want to see our people compensated well, I want to see competitive packages. But when you look at what the average citizen is dealing with today, the cost of government all throughout the state, the inflationary costs are driven a lot by government, by the way. Today, we're only going to exacerbate that, and the average person today is not getting a 5.5%, nor are they eligible for an additional 3.5%. And the average citizen has no idea when the media covers this and they go out and talk about the annual cost of living, and those are all important, and we need to make sure and reward people properly. But very few people understand there's an additional 3.5%, and then there could be an additional compensation for performance. I want those tools there, I really do. But anybody who's been a part of this process and has talked to me, and I've been represented by AFSCME, MAPE, and MMA, and so I understand how it works. What we haven't done is to make sure that we've changed the institutional processes, that we bake in the accountability, and we deliver at a level that the citizens, we don't have to tell them how good we are, but how great they're being served. And I don't think that happens today, and I've been continually working in this group. We always get beat up about not wanting to reward people. I want to create an opportunity where our managers have the tools, and the top side performers and the bottom side, not lack of performers, the tools necessary to manage the workforce. Today on the top side, we have amazing people that are grossly underpaid for their worth, but we're not willing to institute or instill the training practices that would lead and then allow us or enthusiastically walk towards compensation packages that reward people and drive accelerated performance. Unfortunately, right, the governor's office and nobody in there is willing to talk about that. Anybody on the other side willing to join me, as I've said every time I've been here and every year, would love to join and do that work on that transformation. Everybody wins, but we're not willing to have that. Today we talk about we got to make sure we're compensating and competitive and all those things. That's true and that's great, but what we don't have is the pressures that the rest of the people who fund this government entity have in their real world. At the individual level, the business unit level, the product level, it fixes itself and they have the tools necessary. I want us to be able to have those things. And so at the end of the day, we could join in creating compensation packages that are attractive, financially rewarding, and compensate for the highest performance and drive high performance. But we don't have those things today. And I think that's where the frustration comes from. So with that, just to be clear, just so the citizens know, 55% are going to get a 9% increase in addition to a 8% increase in the following year, 17% over a biennium. There's no one in the private sector getting that, even on these difficult times. Madam Chair, I have one addition. I have just a question about the non-financial provisions.
Senator Coran.
As well. So with these, I always have concerns, as I have every single time these have been before us, is are we looking at, when we expand on the non-compensation or the non-financial side, those types of things, expanding sick leave eligibility and all of those things, the good news is we've exhausted the qualifying uses of sick leave. But when we do these things, are we consideration how many fewer people will be there? What's the total cost of these? Because you say they're non-financial, but there are real costs because people are, one, earning time, and two, they're also not providing service. Do we look at that? How many more people are going to be gone for a particular period of a year that we're now, one, living without the service, and two, it's an additional cost to us? Is that a consideration when we negotiate these types of components of what we classify as non-financial?
Ms. Leland.
Chair Murphy, Senator Coran, the expansion in these plans for unrepresented employees are in conformity with the state law that was passed. In terms of the costing, yes, MMB did do fiscal notes related to when that state law was being proposed, and so those materials should be available as to what the anticipated cost would be.
Madam Chair?
Senator Coran.
So with that, what we'd like then is if those fiscal notes or that financial impact, because it's listed as non-financial, we should have those numbers with us, and they should be presented to us at each of the meetings, because those are real costs. And their impact or the people are not providing additional hours of services for those employees. But we should know those things, so just an advisory. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coran. Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it, Madam Chair. So as Senator Coran just pointed out, I was saying earlier too that these compensation plans are enormous. These are the biggest I've seen in the 11 years I've been here. And the problem with us not meeting to do interim approval is that we do pattern bargaining, as everybody in this room knows. And so ASME and MAPE are the first ones to the table, and whatever they negotiate, whatever they get, especially across the board, maybe not every particular thing, but it's a pattern, determines everybody else's compensation. And there's essentially no flexibility. The only caveat to that would be when state does negotiate some of their own contracts. So in this contract, as Senator Coran just pointed out, you can see how problematic this pattern bargaining is, because you've got exorbitant amounts, and that's not just this contract, it's several contracts, but you have 1,227 employees, of which 55% will get not just across the board, but an additional 3.5% compounded. So that's in the first year. So the other thing that the public should know is one other unique thing to this compensation plan is the increase of shift differential. It was 65 cents per hour. It's going to $2.25 per hour. That's over 4 times higher. So, well, not quite. It's just under 4 times higher. And you know, if we're not going to be meeting in the interim and we're not going to take a look at this and the public doesn't get to weigh in on this, that's where my concern is. Because we should have been meeting when Ashley and Mape were just finishing up their contracts, which was quite some time ago. But we didn't meet, we didn't talk about it, because if you don't change the initial 2 contracts that come in, you have a pattern thereafter, and then you have this. So I was just kind of looking at the settlement sheet that we always get, barely talk about, but I will. So in the settlement sheet, we only have 10 of the 20 contracts or plans that have been settled. And we are already at $634 million over base. We're halfway done. Now, I'm not going to say that half of the employees, because that's not accurate. Half of the plans and contracts have been settled, and it's already at $634 million. And if you look at the tails, it's another 850, almost 55 million. We're going to be well over an additional $1 billion by the time we're done, without even blinking an eye. This is a lot of money. It's a lot of money in the tails. And Senator Cran is absolutely right. I don't even remember what percentage increase he said it was, but it's a lot. And this is the problem with the law change. This is the problem with this committee not meeting when it's relevant. It is no longer relevant. It's already, the pattern is already established. Pattern bargaining is already happening. We aren't even relevant at this point. That's my frustration. And I don't know if media is listening or the public is listening, but someone has to pay attention to this, because you're talking about billions of dollars. Before we did anything, it was approaching $11 billion. We are going to shoot way past $12 billion for the state employee contracts. And there's more out there that we don't even see everything. So I feel bad for Min State, because if you look at what they've settled, Min State was able to do a 2.6 and a 2.9% across the board. And that's what they can afford. But the ones, like, there are several contracts that they have no control over whatsoever, that who gets to pay for that is students going to Min State or the taxpayer. So just like this business owner said to me, he is sick and tired of increased taxes, of extra burden, of more mandates that he cannot manage. He's had it. And I don't know how many other Minnesotans, but I'm sure there's a whole bunch of them, because I hear from them almost on a daily basis. We've got to have a backstop somewhere. And we just basically removed the ability or power of this committee, this subcommittee, to do much of anything. So that's my concern. It's my concern throughout this entire process of every single contract that we're going to be looking at. What do we do now? You know, the cake's already baked.
Thank you very much, Representative Rarick. I do want to remind committee members, and again, this is my first time serving on this subcommittee, so I am new to this, but not new to the process, that the Subcommittee on Employee Relations does not insert itself into the negotiations of contracts. When contracts were negotiated, we had the ability, this committee had the ability to ratify or not, but we did not negotiate the contracts. And what I'm hearing from Representative Rarick sounds a little bit like intervening in the negotiations, which would be, from my perspective, an overstep of the boundaries of our work as a legislature. We do have oversight. Here we are. We will be able to meet more often if we need to, if there's call for that. And the last thing I will say, we're talking about increases. The 3.5%, as I understand it, is merit-based, and people have to earn that through their work. So it is not an automatic 17% increase over the biennium for everybody. Merit pay is something that has been agreed to in the contracts. It is agreed to by MMB. But people, just like in the legislature, and the people who work for the legislature work and are evaluated and earn merit pay. So are we seeing that in these contracts? I think that's important to acknowledge. And last, we are talking about state employees. And sometimes we like to put people who are state employees into a bucket of government, and not everybody likes that. But I want to remind everybody that what we're really talking about are Minnesotans who live across the state. They live in every part of the state. They're working to serve the people of Minnesota. We're recognizing their work in different places with these contracts that we did not negotiate. But it is important, I think, for us to center ourselves in the work that we're doing here, because what we are saying by our action is that we value your work. We recognize the negotiation that has happened. I, for one, am going to support that work because I support the work of Minnesotans across the state of Minnesota. I know what you're contributing in terms of labor. I also know what you're contributing in terms of a continuation of the growth of our economy all across this community. And for the business owner that Representative Rarick is talking about, like, give people in that community have a little bit more money to spend. It's going to benefit those small businesses and those communities. That's a good thing. So I just want to make sure and express that point of view before we take this issue up for a vote. Are there other comments or other questions? Representative Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I have a question for Ms. Leland. I was curious if you could speak to the vacancy rate within state jobs and shortage of workers across the state, if that's had an impact on the services that the state can provide, including any reduction of capacity or a complete shutdown of services in any way.
Ms. Leland.
Chair Murphy, Representative Frederick, I can't give you exact vacancy numbers. There's a lot of variability among agencies and among job classes. But it is certainly the case that there are certain job classifications that are very challenging to fill. They were challenging before the pandemic. They're even more challenging now. The plans for unrepresented employees incorporate some provisions that are aimed at trying to help recruit and retain in some of those positions. They tend to be in positions that require you to physically go into a place to work. That's actually the main impetus behind what we did with shift differential. We not only increased the amount, but we changed the way it's paid. So it's not just based on when your shift happens to start or stop, but anybody who works in those undesirable hours after 6 p.m. or before 6 a.m., those are our hardest to fill jobs and where places are at risk of closing services and so forth. And so that was intentionally done to shift, not paying more, but paying it in a different way. The language also changed who is eligible. But in terms of actual vacancy rates, that's not something I can answer for you right here, but I'd be happy to provide you some information, enterprise-wide or agency-specific, if you'd like.
Representative Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to share with the committee that some of what I'm hearing Ms. Leland talk about is the direct care positions, the direct services that the state of Minnesota provides, and that we do not have the workforce in that space to be able to provide the services that we need. And whether that is within our mental health system in St. Peter at the security hospital there, that they've had to shut down units because of not wages, but staff. They don't have staff there. And that impacts every county across the state, every county that's holding somebody there and needs to send somebody to get the mental health services that St. Peter offers. And so these wages aren't just about getting people paid, but it's because we don't have the workforce that we need as a state. So the picture too, when it comes to performance improvement and driving people to be better employees, it's really hard to do some of that when you already don't have enough. And so it's, I guess the only other question I would ask Ms. Leland is, part of any of these compensation plan or the collective bargaining agreements, is there a performance improvement process outlined in any of them?
Ms. Leland.
Chair Murphy, Representative Frederick, I think I'm not
Madam
sure
Chair, could we have the speaker, if we could move the microphone?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. It's just very difficult to hear.
Thank you, Senator Coran. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Representative Frederick, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Representative Frederick.
Madam Chair, thank you. When the contracts are getting negotiated, it's more than just wages, to my understanding, that often in these contracts, it also talks about perhaps vacation accruals, any site-specific, there can be addendums, but there's also potentially, is there not also processes that talk, or the sections that might include talking about performance improvements? So if an employee is not performing at the level that perhaps they should be, it can talk about how do we support that employee so they become better at their job.
Ms. Leland.
Chair Murphy, Representative Frederick, yes, all of the negotiated contracts and the compensation plans have provisions about how to manage employee performance. There's tools that management has, there's parts that involve conversations with the unions, and so yes, those have long been and continue to be embedded within our contracts and plans.
Representative Frederick.
Thank you, Chair Murphy. I just wanted to point that out, is that these compensation plans, these collective bargaining agreements already have provisions in them to address performance improvement, and that the wages that we are putting in here to some at a surface level might seem high, but it is because we are unable as a state to provide the services that we need to. So I think that they are a good step. I cannot wait to see if it's enough even, because if we're not filling the holes in the workforce that we need to fill, I would say that we need to invest further in state employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to ask for a roll call for this, please. For this plan.
A roll call's been requested. Representative Anderson.
Thank you. I'll just make a few comments. I mean, the horse is out of the barn, the cart's out of the barn. I don't remember that. But these are done and they're negotiated, and I don't think, Representative Rarick mentioned that there's, much that we can do of anything to change things. I just want to make just a couple brief points. The 3%.
Madam Chair, her microphone isn't on.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. All right. I think it was referred to as a performance step increases. Those are generally step increases that if you've done your job, fine, it's automatic, and they're typically based on years of service. So it isn't performance based, except if your performance isn't there necessarily. And so I just wanted to lay that out, because I think, and we've talked about this frankly for decades, but the more we could move to more performance-based and reward high-performing employees like they do in the private sector, the better off the state would be. That's not where these contracts are going, but I just want to express my support for looking at that, if possible, down the road. I think the negative of what was passed in the legislature, kind of removing our ability to do anything, is it actually hurts the governor's bargaining power. And because this committee was a backstop in a sense that, the governor has so much dollars to work with, whatever was passed within the budget, and they have to negotiate within those parameters. But they also have to go, hey, there's this committee here, and this committee, may not like it, or they may not, but that's gone now. And so this actually, I think, hurts the governor's bargaining position, who is, as you all work for the governor, that's who's negotiating these contracts. So I think it was a negative thing it's going to be a negative problem. But I certainly also understand and there have been times, and this committee has held contracts hostage in end of session budget negotiations, and it's not necessarily a positive thing to hold up state employees' contracts over some other issue that may not even be related to that. It may be over a bonding bill, or it has something else, right? So I understand that, but I think this has harmed the state's ability and the governor's ability to negotiate. In regards to the comments about the workforce, Minnesota has, problems with its workforce, not only in some areas of state employment, certain fields, but also within the private sector. And it's not getting better. We have very, very low unemployment. We're losing working if you look at the statistics, it isn't just higher income folks or seniors that are leaving Minnesota, but we're also losing people in their prime years. My own daughter is an example. She's a pharmacist. She left, and she's not coming back. And right at the beginning of her career. So we're losing people here. And the state can attempt to compete for these employees, the ones we have left, but the private sector also has to hire these employees, and in the end, it's just going to drive up inflation and wage inflation for everyone, because there's only so many bodies. There's only so many people here. So I don't have an answer, but besides trying to keep our working age folks in the state, which I think is the solution answer, but raising wages for that are above the market norm within the rest of the world for certain categories of employees is only going to drive it up for the private sector, which is it's going to do nothing. It's just a spiral, an end spiral. So other than that, I know that these are done, they're negotiated, and I appreciate Senator Murphy's offer to, since this committee hasn't met, I'm about 15 years out of date on employee contracts, and I would love to find out what's been happening over time. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, I have one quick follow-up.
Senator Curran.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
I have a question on the other provisions, number 14 on page 2. Employees with a permanently closed work location and approved to telework are eligible for mileage reimbursement if the new work location is over 35 miles. What are the parameters on that? What it says, right? It says establishes allowable mileage determination. What are some of the parameters, and where would that scenario work? Just describe one for me, please.
Ms. Leland?
Chair Murphy, Senator Curran, this is a pretty narrow change, and it's if we don't pay for employees to commute. If they're teleworking and sometimes come into the office, that's not something that we normally pay for. This is specifically to address those situations where the employee used to work at a work location and the work location closed, and the employee no longer has the option to commute to the place that was close to where they chose in the first place. And so this language is similar to what was in one of the negotiated contracts. Of course, these aren't negotiated, but it's a similar provision. So there were some, I believe it was Department of Revenue had some facilities in northern Minnesota that closed, and employees now have to drive further through no choice or fault of their own. And so it's intended to be used in very limited circumstances. And so it's not for all employees that telework, or we're not intending to pay for employees commuting time at all. It's just in those specific situations where an employee's work location is closed. And it would only be for as long as they hold that particular job. If they promote or get some other job or decide that they want to move closer, then they no longer get mileage to go to the new location.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Curran.
And so does that include, is that only employees who live in Minnesota, or those that live elsewhere?
Ms. Leland.
Chair Murphy, Senator Curran, I can't off the top of my head think of Minnesota-based work locations that, I can't think of a situation where that would apply. I mean, we have some employees that, again, for the Department of Revenue that, for example, live in other states because they have to do monitoring and that. But no, it would not be the intent that we're going to pay those employees to drive back and forth if those type of work locations close. That's not the intent of the language.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
Senator Curran.
I'm very familiar. I think the Department of Revenue, we used to have, 30-plus remote units all throughout the country, and we've consolidated. My concern is that, one, I think there's a big transition in the workforce. I think government appears to be adopting is going to lag. And I think work from home is a great alternative or a way to augment the workforce, but not replace it. And I think you're seeing it with the rest of the private sector. They're starting to ease back. It looks like we've abandoned that plan, and we're going to have them permanently in remote locations, Department of Revenue being one of them. I think 85% of the people are gone, and they're working out of their homes. My concern is that since I arrived, I'm concerned about all of those that no longer are even residents of Minnesota. So we talk about, I think Senator Murphy, you talked about or Madam Chair, that we talked about they're Minnesotans. I think the last number I received was in excess of 2,500 people now no longer live in Minnesota. And so they no longer have even a basic accountability that they're also a resident who shares Minnesota as their home state. As that trend grows, I have concerns about the performance and the productivity of everyone. And why would we offer those packages, the packages that we have today, the people that aren't here? And so when I arrived, I think we had 500 people, almost 500, that worked in excess of 100 miles from their normal work location. And so those trends I have a concern with. Are we getting what we expect for the employees that work in those remote, non-Minnesota-based ones? Not the borders, I'm not talking about them. That's why my first ask before was for people that live in excess of 100 miles from the Minnesota border. In that time, we had the person who managed the Mississippi River watershed, lives in Sonoma Valley, California, probably still does. That work requires on-site physical work. And so those are bad policies if everybody in a business unit can't participate it or the job should require you here. And so I have the concern that this trend, that number grew significantly over the last few years of those people who aren't even citizens. And I don't care where you live in the state, as long as you're a Minnesota resident. And I know we can't dictate residency, but we should certainly be aware, and we would expect that we start to track that workforce. And if it's so mobile, then we got lots of other options to hire from and lots of other ways to acquire those services that can have that baked-in accountability that I don't believe exists at all levels. So I hope that is limited, this option that we're going to give mileage now to somebody just before their normal workday. But I do think we have to be concerned, and I'd like to see a little more transparency in informing us, especially in the Subcommittee on Employee Relations. If we have moved beyond, we have no role or voice in the collective bargaining process, the overall employment environment is maybe where this needs to morph to. And so I would like to see if we could do that, if we're going to have a functional section, really about workforce, because I think we get branded as we don't care. That's not true. I think there are ways. I think Representative Frederick, you talked about St. Peter. We have direct service homes that are already paying well in excess of the private market. They can't staff those positions already. I get it. And so we in my share passion for the human side of what we do here. Both sides, not only the employee, but the people we serve. So if there was a way that we could morph and do good work in that transformation of the workforce, where we could all get on board, that we're seeing those things that give our upper managers tools to manage for more productivity. They don't have tools to manage the top side of the workforce or the bottom side of the workforce. And so if we're stuck with this environment, I would like to see us kind of move into that dialogue and bring in proposals that I think at the end of the day, everybody wins. I want the employees to win. I want management to win, and we can get into and create compensation packages that reward and make it extremely attractive to hire or to work for the state. But I also expect accountability at every level. And I think we can do it. So thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, testifiers.
Thank you, Senator Coran. Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of seems like we're kind of getting to a point where I think we've had, I think, really good discussion. And I'd like to move SCR 1 for this committee's consideration and I don't.
So Representative Lilly is moving SCR 1, which would, by our action, then take up all of the documents before us. And I think it would be right for us when we take a motion, and we're going to have a roll call on that we do it in one motion. I do want to make sure that we've heard from and we've answered members' questions about the balance of, so the managerial plan from the Office of Higher Education, et cetera. So I want to make sure before we take up a vote, that we've heard from the people in the room. If there's anybody else that wants to testify, if there are other questions about these plans, that we get that out on the table. Representative, I'm going to say this just one time, Representative O'Rearick, just one time, a hybrid for you. Okay, Representative O'Rearick.
I like that.
That's kind of fun.
That's first time you get kudos for that. I've never heard that before, so that's awesome. Thank you. I just had, since we are still discussing, listening to the debate, I wanted to know how many of the 1,227 employees in the commissioner's plan work at St. Peter. I don't know that that's accurate. Do any of them work at St. Peter? This is the commissioner's plan that we were discussing.
Thank you, Representative, and I'm looking to Ms. Leland.
Chair Murphy, Representative Rarick, I can't tell you exactly how many Commissioners Plan employees would work at St. Peter, but I think the answer is probably not zero. The Commissioners Plan covers employees who don't work sufficient hours to be covered in the bargaining unit, and so if employees would be, and even asked me, but for the hours that they work, then they would be covered in the Commissioners Plan. But in terms of the exact number of employees, I don't know. I don't know.
And to repeat that, because I want to make sure that I got that, likely not, you believe it's not zero, but you don't know the exact number, and it's because of numbers of hours worked. So they may work at St. Peter, not member of the bargaining unit, so covered under the Commissioner's Plan instead.
Chair Murphy, that's correct. So employees that would be in a represented unit, but for the number of hours they worked, their terms and conditions would be set by the Commissioner's Plan. There's some other positions in the Commissioner's Plan that may or may not have presence at St. Peter. I don't know if they have pharmacists, for example, that may be based there. I just don't know that.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had heard that when I brought up the shift differential and understanding who these folks are, I just thought, I don't think many, maybe just a super small handful, maybe even work at the bedside, because as you know, Madam Chair, as you were a nurse, a lot of those folks are actually in the MNA, and so, but now I understand that this is actually those that don't fulfill the correct number of hours. So we have 20 different contracts and plans, and so I just wanted to be clear that when we started this conversation, it was specifically about the Commissioner's Plan. And I don't want the public to be confused, because I was confused and I was like, I don't know that any of these people actually work at St. Peter. So I just want to be absolutely clear that when we're having these conversations, the public isn't confused. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. Are there other comments from the people who are here to testify on the other plans? Are there questions from members on the other plans? All right, members, I want to be clear that we are preparing to vote. Before we take that vote, I just want to make sure we've gotten all of the questions out of the way. People are satisfied and are prepared for a roll call vote. All right, then. A roll call has been requested. Representative Lilly has moved SER 1, which is a resolution regarding compensation plans. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Farnsworth.
No.
Senator Cran.
No.
Senator Mitchell.
Yes.
Senator Mohammed. Representative Anderson.
No.
Representative Frederick.
Aye.
Representative Lilly.
Aye.
Representative Rarick.
No.
Representative Joachim.
Yes.
6 aye, 4 no.
There being 6 ayes and 4 noes, that motion is adopted. Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I wasn't fully up to speed, because I apologize. I just came rushing in from a funeral, and it was distracting, so I apologize for that. But did you, in that motion that you made, did you also include the Min-State plans as well? So the Minnesota State Administrators Personnel Plan, did you put all of them together with, is that what we just voted on?
That is correct.
Okay. That's, Madam Chair, may I speak?
Representative Rarick, of course.
Thank you. I just didn't want to speak out of turn. So, Madam Chair, my concern is that these plans are very different, and I had already pointed that out in my prior comments. because Men's State does have the ability to negotiate some of their contracts, and they are not pattern bargained like the rest of the state employees. And I don't know that it's actually fair or right to do this all as one sweeping motion, because like I was saying before, when we talk about the Minnesota State Administrators Personnel Plan, they have a 2.5 and a 2.5 across the board, where the other ones are a 5.5 and a 4.5 across the board cost of living increase. So I realize that you were taking it slow, and I do appreciate that, but I think the public should understand that I'm sure I just don't think we should have rolled them all in together, because they're not the same. We even have separate briefs about the two kind of unique plan, or groups of unique plans. So I don't think we can undo it at this point, because I suppose I can make a motion to reconsider the motion, but in the future, can we please separate out, even as the briefs are? I thought we were going to have a fuller discussion about some of the other plans, but we just sort of moved ahead. So my concern is that we've just jumped ahead and that we didn't discuss even the Men's State plans that they negotiate themselves, which are significantly different than the pattern bargaining. So I'm not going to make a motion, but I would ask that if we're going to do this in the future, that we would make two separate motions, or maybe separate motions for each contract, which we've done in the past. And I realize, Madam Chair, that you've not been on SDR maybe in the past. I don't remember you being on there. Representative Lilly obviously has been there longer than I have, so maybe he can recall. So that's my request, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Rarick. First of all, I am sorry for your loss, and I appreciate you being here on the heels of a funeral. Thank you very much for that and for your care for the work that we share together. You're right, I did go slowly and methodically to try and make sure everybody in the room understood what we were taking up, and surveyed the room, making eye contact with everybody to make sure that the people that were here, if they wanted an opportunity to come and testify, that they had that opportunity. One of the things that's hard about hybrid, of course, is that you can't necessarily see the work that we're doing in the room. So I appreciate what you're raising. I appreciate you're not calling for a reconsideration. And as we continue our work together, and I want to say that our staff did prepare two different methods of motions, and I did choose to move this all in one motion, since they were before us, and we were having a conversation about more than one part of the compensation plans before us. So I just want to make sure I'm explaining myself to you and to the public if they are listening. All right. I believe that exhausts the work of the Subcommittee on Employee Relations, unless anybody has something else they want to bring before us. If there's any spontaneous testimony from anybody that is here from any of the corners of the state of Minnesota, I don't see anybody racing to the testimony witness stand, so I will say with that, members, thank you very, very much for your work. Our meeting is adjourned.